Your Miami Dolphins are playing their best football of the season right now. They've won back-to-back games. They have won 3 of their last 4 games. Among the questions we're going to answer today, what does Mike McDaniel have to do to save his job, and how will the Dolphins fare in these last 6 games? What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. I am Chris Perkins, your host, your South Florida Sun Sentinel Miami Dolphins columnist. That is Dave Hyde. He is your South Florida Sun Sentinel sports columnist. Dave, are you surprised by anything you've seen from the Dolphins in these last 3 weeks?
Well, the Buffalo game shocked me.
Yeah.
The other game, I mean, it shocked me. Atlanta shocked me from the standpoint they just had an awful game against Cleveland. And then I guess all 3 games shocked me now I'm thinking about it. Because I thought they would run Washington off the field. I thought, especially the way it started, the first few plays, they're getting 10 yards at least a crack. And I thought, okay, this is going to go right to script. And, you just never know. I mean, Washington changed their defense up a little with Dan Quinn calling the plays, and I think that maybe that was part of the confusion for the Dolphins. But, I was surprised by that too.
Yeah, and what about that Baltimore game sandwiched in between those wins?
Oh, yeah, it's Baltimore. Yeah, that was closer to form. But, again, that's a Thursday night game, and almost anything can happen in those games. So, I forgot about that game.
Yeah,
I don't really think of the positive ones, Perk.
I know that is. I always call you Mr. Positivity, Dave. So that's it. That's it. What's up, everybody? We want to welcome our YouTube viewers. We want to remind you to leave a comment, thought, question in our live chat. The best place to find intelligent Dolphins conversation. Some of the questions we will answer on air today during the show. Others we will answer later today in an online Q&A. We'd also like to remind you to sign up for our weekly newsletter, The Fans Flash, which you can subscribe to by scanning the QR code that will be shown on your screen. And we would like to tell you that if you miss any part of this show, you can catch the podcast on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, so the things that we're going to discuss today, what does Mike McDaniel have to do to save his job? That has been a question that we've been asking probably since the 0-3 start of the season. So we're going to kind of flesh that out a little bit. We're going to talk about whether Devon Achane is the obvious choice for team MVP this season. And then finally, we will talk about what the Fins must do in these final 6 games and how you think these final 6 games are going to go for them. As we always say, there's an ocean of possibilities. Let's dive in. All right, Dave Hyde. So when we look at what Mike McDaniel has done this season and throughout his tenure as a Dolphins head coach, he is 32-30 as a Dolphins head coach. That's a .516 winning percentage. Pretty much mediocrity defined to me, but we did hear from secondhand information reliable from Stephen Ross, the Dolphins owner, that there's a chance that Mike McDaniel will stay around for next season. I'm not a fan of that, but we'll see. I mean, look, if he finishes strongly this season, then, we can definitely have that conversation. And for me, finishing strongly, the Dolphins are 4-7 right now. They have 6 games remaining. If they win the last 6 and run the table and finish 10-7, that's very, very impressive considering those last 2 games are against Tampa and against New England. That would be hugely impressive, especially at New England. So if he runs the table and finishes 10-7, we can definitely have that discussion. For me, the goal for the season, the measuring stick of a successful season was winning a playoff game. So, I'm not sure that that's going to happen even if they finish 10-7. But Hyde, I don't see Mike McDaniel coming back by my criteria. What do you think Mike McDaniel needs to do to come back, and do you think he will attain that?
He needs to convince one person, and that person, by everything that we're seeing, things I've been told, wants him to come back. He hasn't made the decision. He will come back. I mean, if they go out and lose or they play awful, but I'm told it's not even wins, losses, it's process. how they go about their work and how they look and et cetera. I'm not really sure what that means, to be honest with you, but that's what I was told. And so Steve Ross.
Yep, hang on. Hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is there we go. All right.
Some old white man dancing stuff, I guess, huh?
That's on the it was on our I just heard to our chat here, so that's what was on. So there we go.
So look, Steve Ross wants him to come back because Tua is going to come back with that contract, and
yeah,
to go out and get a new coach would be difficult. So, it's Steve Ross's decision. I'm with you that I'm not a fan of in baseball in September. They say don't look at a losing team's record in September, and we're not there quite with the Dolphins because it's the last half of the season. But it can be seductive, especially with this schedule. And as we've known in recent years, the Dolphins are kings of, like last year, they started 2-6, yep. and they came back to be in the discussion for the playoffs. Brian Flores started 1-8 and came back. But I'm with you, Perk, that if we're going how we set the standards of the season, the bar where it was, they're not going to get there.
Yeah, it's a high bar right now. It was always going to be a high bar. I predicted them, as you know, to finish 9-8. I guess that's still possible. I didn't think that was going to be possible at 0-3, but it is more realistic and more possible right now. Although it's still a very, very high bar. 9-8 would be a very impressive finish. We'll see what happens there. That's a 5-1 finish. That would be very impressive, but. That would still, to me, be mediocrity. And if Steve Ross wants to get away from the status quo, as he said, he won't settle for this. Here's a couple of other things that I want to see from Mike McDaniel. I want to see him win late season games. I want to see him win late season road games. Coming right now, my big thing is I want to see him beat playoff caliber teams. So right now, Mike McDaniel is 5-20 against playoff caliber teams. That's a 200 winning percentage. He is 7-10 in December and January games. That's winning 41% of his games. And on the road, he is 11-20. That's winning 35% of those road games. So to me, none of these are good enough. But we'll see what Stephen Ross thinks about this. Before we go on, want to say what's up to Roger Allman, want to say what's up to Ender Fireplace YT, want to say what's up to Fitzgrass checking in from Naples, Luis Felipe Benito, Billy Batson Marvell, who else? Dead Streak is in here, Comrade is in here, Bigote 1775, J1364, Chad Capner from Salt Lake City. What's up, Chad? Carl Beckert is in here. Broward Dolphins is in here. Am I enjoying the weather in San Antonio? I am, Carl. I am down in San Antonio. I'm at my sister's place. She's got a dog here that when a car starts or somebody knocks on the door, the dog barks. Great dog, Shotzi. But just know that if something happens, Shotzi will bark. So, yeah.
Looking forward to that. We ought to have guess the over-under. I'm saying about 29th minute into the show, we'll get a bark.
We could because my sister is going to come home. I sent her a text. I'm doing the podcast in your kitchen. So, be quiet when you come in. So we'll see what happens here. C. Dola, what's up? Michael Castellanos, what's up? CLD 170, what's going on? That'll be crazy checking in. Like to see that. So, hi, here's one this is from Roger Allman. Since we're talking about Mike McDaniel and what he must do to return and kind of his coaching, the decision not to kick the field goal last week. Roger Allman says, can you guys explain Coach McDaniel's explanation of why he didn't kick the field goal? I heard it a couple of times and still don't get it. It's better to be lucky than good, I guess. You wrote a very good column about this. What Mike McDaniel said was he thought that with 144 remaining, if they kick a field goal, that Washington still has enough time to go down and get themselves in field goal position, because with the new kickoff rules, we're seeing teams start off around the 30-yard line. So if you get another, say, 30 yards, you could be in field goal range. So Mike McDaniel didn't want the game tying field goal, leave enough time on the clock for a game tying field goal. He wanted to get the touchdown and force Washington to have to come down and score a touchdown to tie the game. My thought is kind of like your thought, Hyde, is, Mike McDaniel, you're kind of coaching for your job here. You're kind of coaching for the season. You couldn't afford to take the 8th loss at that point. So go ahead and kick the field goal, put the game on your special teams, put the game on the back of your defense, and rely on them to come through. And if nothing else, put the game on the right leg of the Washington kicker, who hadn't been solid to that point. Hyde, again, your thought, do you, a couple of days later, do you stick by the column? I sure hope so.
Yeah, look, it was a field goal game, wasn't it? I mean, yeah. 13-13. No, neither offense has got in the end zone much. 3 point. How many times did they go for 4th down? Both sides. Washington just done it with under 7 minutes to go, which is a little more understandable considering, there's more time on the clock, more possible variables for things to happen. But if either of these coaches had gone for field goals earlier, rather than constantly going, that they would have decided the game. So. Factors for me, Marcus Mariota's on the other side, not Justin Herbert, as the Dolphins got beat by. Now, they also lost to Carolina in the last second, and maybe Mike's really saying, I do not trust our defense at all. We've lost 2 games at the end. So, but to me, that 3 points is gold, and if Washington comes back and ties the game up and sends it to overtime, so be it. But no, I'm all for analytics. I'm all for using that information. And I appreciate the idea of going for it on 4th down a lot. But when you can get the lead with under 2 minutes to go and the other team doesn't have timeouts and Marcus Mariota is the quarterback and they don't have any playmakers on offense, they really don't have any that you fear. I'd take that every time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would have just put the game on my defense and said, look, you guys go out there and make a play, which they actually did in overtime and, win the game for us. Hyde, if the Dolphins would have lost that game, is that a fireable offense by Mike McDaniel?
Well, I mean, sure, considering where we are, I'm not sure that he's going to get fired the rest of this year, though. I mean, could Steve Ross have used it to fire him? Yeah, I mean, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Steve Ross has said, I'm sticking with him. Again, he wants him to come back next year. I'm getting that feeling. And in which case, if he comes back and Tua comes back, I think we're looking at Champ Kelly being the interim to getting a 1-year tryout at GM, because, again, what GM is going to come in inheriting all this. So that's sort of what I'm 50-50 that plays out. But I could see a real scenario that's what Steve Ross wants to happen.
We get a question here from AKPS2HK. Why wouldn't many GMs want to work for the Dolphins, Ross, and Garfinkel? I think GMs would want to work for them. Look, this is, to me, the dysfunction kind of came from Chris Grier and the playing style that they wanted to go for. Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel, with the speed and the finesse. But the stuff with communication with Stephen Ross, that all the dysfunction from those days is gone. It seems to be a much more clear power structure and power pyramid. It was Chris Grier reporting to Stephen Ross. It wasn't, you didn't have the Tannenbaum and Don Aponte and Jeff Ireland and Dennis Hickey and a bunch of voices. So if I'm a GM, I would want to work for them. Now, if I was a head coach and I was just replacing Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier was still here, I wouldn't consider that the greatest job. But if you get a clean slate, yeah, I think it would be I think if I'm a GM, I do want to work for Stephen Ross.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Now, the question becomes, what's the situation when you come in? Or again, is Mike McDaniel going to be here? Is what's going on with Tua, and what does the GM think of that? Or do they clean house? In which case, who is the power? Is it GM led? There's a lot of issues that these guys, and a lot of them have been through. You mentioned two of them: Ross Garfinkel, Brandon Shore.
Yep.
Have been through this before. And I wrote a column last Sunday saying they need to talk about everything that's gone wrong to make sure that we're not repeating issues here. But look, it's Dolphins. There's only so many jobs out there. And let's face it, they haven't won in 25 years a playoff game. If you come in here, win a playoff game, that's it. That's the bar right now.
Yeah, and it's a pretty low bar, but it's a pretty high bar for this franchise, considering it's been 25 years. So, let's see. There was one more that I wanted to one more question that I wanted to entertain here, but I don't see where. Oh, from Mal Be Crazy, is the team playing for Mike McDaniel or playing for their individual jobs? I think they're playing more for their individual jobs, but I don't think that matters. It's as long as they're giving a winning effort. And I wrote a column saying this team won't quit. These guys are not quitters. They're not a 12-win talent team, but they're not quitters. They aren't going to quit. I don't know about this playing hard for Mike McDaniel, whatever. They're playing hard. And that's the bottom line. They have not quit on Mike McDaniel. I don't think they will quit on Mike McDaniel. I think that I thought that they had stopped listening to Mike McDaniel, but I think they like Mike. I think they respect Mike. They're not going to ever quit or not play hard. But the question about playing for Mike, I think they're playing more for themselves, but they're playing to win. And to me, that's what matters in pro sports.
Yeah, look, they have jobs, they have careers, and there's a lot of young guys who are developing. And so it's not like you have a too many aging veterans who say, I'm not going out and killing myself this season. You got a lot of young guys who want to go out and make careers for themselves. So, with McDaniel, the question to me is, what's he learned after 3.5 years or 4 years it will be? And, that say, okay, he can keep going because he's learned something that allows us to keep him. And one of the things we're looking for is he's turned to the running game a lot more. You don't see the pass happening now. Tyreek Hill's not there, which is obviously, and they don't, while they're finding a tight end, serviceable tight end, they don't have a impactful tight end out there. So he had to change the offense some, but they've run the ball pretty well.
Yeah, they have. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to write about that next week. I had a note about that. April, you can come in and sit down. It's my niece, April. She's standing by the door. My sister and my niece came home, and yes, my niece was standing by the door frozen.
Lean into the camera and say hi, since
I could. You want to come say hi, April? Yeah. All right, come say hi. Come say hello. All right. There we go. Come over here. Come by me. All right. There's my niece, April. Yeah. All right. There we go. All right. So that's April. That's our visit from April there. All right. Let's move on to segment number 2. Is Devon Achane the obvious choice for team MVP? Hyde, this is a very short list, right? You've got Devon Achane, who has been the threat from scrimmage, both as a receiver and a runner. You got Jordan Brooks, who leads the NFL in tackles at the linebacker position. And pretty much after that, to me, you're probably only looking at Aaron Brewer, the center. I mean, come on. And then Patrick Paul, the left tackle. I mean, come on. This is pretty much a two-man race, right? Between Achane and Jordan Brooks, and I'm going with Achane. Tua's not in the picture. Jalen Waddle's not in the picture. Minkah Fitzpatrick not in the picture. If anybody else has any ideas, put them in the chat, or any other names. I think it's a two-man race, and I think it's Devon Achane at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he's third in the league in rushing, 900 yards. Plus he's the dual threat as 5 catches a game, five touchdowns on the season receiving. So, he has been what I've said about he's as electric as anybody in the league right now.
Yep.
The way he plays,
Yep.
you see him constantly turn nothing into something. I thought when he came into the league, oh, he's a small guy. They're going to have a role for him. But he's sort of like James Cook of Buffalo. I think he's better than James Cook, but James Cook's very good too. But same idea, not too big, but a lot of speed, acceleration, and dynamic playmaking.
And you know what? And I think I've said this on here before, Hyde. One thing that I've noticed, a couple of things I've noticed about HN this season, Eric Studesville, the running backs coach, told us during training camp, he said, one thing that I like about HN this year is he's falling forward. Like he's not getting those hits and being knocked backward. He's put on a little muscle. He's falling forward. And after he said that, I started looking, and Studesville was exactly right. The other thing is that HN has not taken a lot of direct hits. He knows how to kind of, avoid those big hits that he got a couple of them his rookie year. And he learned from that. He got ragdolled a couple of times his rookie year. He learned from that. And so it's not only that he's put on a little bit more muscle and that he's falling forward, it's that he has learned how to avoid taking that big hit. And I think that shows in his sustained health. He had the concussion last season, but he didn't end up missing a game. He recovered in time to play again. I think that was against New England that he sustained it early in the season, but he didn't miss a game. So HN has been a huge, huge success for Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins. And, I've been a guy who has talked about player development, and they need to develop players. They haven't developed enough players. Devon HN is number one at the top of that list of draft and develop to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. They were splitting him out wide his first couple years, I think. And I remember the previous game against Washington, same situation. The head coach took over defensive play calling, and I remember they split HN out wide on the first play of the game. Tyreek Hill's on the other side because Washington played one safety high, and they said, okay, the safety is going to help one of these guys. And a linebacker went out and tried to cover HN. The safety helped him, and Tua threw a deep bomb to Tua for a touchdown. But wherever he's one of those guys, wherever you go, the defense has to pay attention to him. It's become that. And they're, out of the backfield, there haven't been a lot of those guys recently for the Dolphins.
Right. We got a couple of people saying, and I agree with them, that HN needs to be paid. Bigota 1775 says, agree, pay HN now. Agree with him being the MVP. Dead Street says we need to extend him ASAP. A couple of people talking about comparisons. C. Dola says HN is more like Chris Johnson. Somebody had brought up Bigota 1775 said Warwick Dunn equal to HN. Let's see. And then somebody said he's a Douglas Anderson says Dunn was shorter and stockier. Do you have any comparisons with HN? Warwick Dunn is not a bad comparison. Chris Johnson is a decent comparison. I can't. I hadn't even thought about it till they started bringing them up here.
I came up with James Cook in that I see James. Now HN has another gear. Cook's very good, but HN has sprinter speed, and you see that, and so, but yeah, Warwick Dunn's an interesting one. Again, what's separate?
Somebody said
HN has a gear.
That's Reggie Bush.
Okay, all right. We saw Reggie Bush near the end, though. So, but the Reggie Bush at his height,
we did.
Maybe. But yeah, paying him is that's priority. That's at the top of the priorities this offseason. And it's a given they have to pay him.
Right. It is a given. They do have to pay him, and hopefully they'll get that correct. And hopefully this is not like the Rob Hunt and Christian Wilkins situations where the Dolphins let the player go to his final year and the player decides, I'm going to gamble on myself, and the player wins. Hopefully that does not happen because I think Achane will win. But here's another question for you with Achane, Hyde. We know Achane's size, and we know that he's a running back in the league's, kind of resistance to pay running backs. Are you giving Achane a 4-year deal? You giving him a 3-year deal? He's not going to accept a 2-year deal. He'd be crazy.
Again, since I'm writing the James Cook comparison here, I'll do it again. Buffalo this offseason gave James Cook 4 years, $48 million, 30 guaranteed, a $9 million signing bonus. There's the framework of a deal for me that okay,
I agree.
Can we move forward with this, playing off that deal and come up with something that fits that Achane will be happy with?
Yeah, I agree 100%. But they've got to pay him. Fitzgrass says, pay the man. Stop letting good players walk away. And I agree with that 100%. A couple of people have brought up Barry Sanders. Phil Montgomery says Achane is LaShawn McCoy 2.0. B Money J7J says Marshall Falk, Utah Fins fan. What's up, Utah Fins fan? Says he's a young Barry Sanders. Let's see. Oh, Fins fan, the Mad Greek. What's up, Marshall Falk? Good to see the Mad Greek checking in. Tempest 1400, what's going on? All right, let's check on our next segment here, and that's what the Fins can do in these final 6 games. What are you expecting from them? Look, off the top of my head, I'm going to try to do this. It's New Orleans, the Jets, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Tampa, and New England.
Very good.
How about that, man? I still got some short-term memory. How's that? So what are you thinking, Hyde? Are you 4-3, 5-1, 6-0? I'm probably thinking 4-3 right now. We've got to watch the health situation. They just lost Juju Brents, the cornerback, for the season. They are probably going to get Austin Jackson back and maybe another offensive lineman. So the losses, the personnel losses, if they happen, aren't just happening in a vacuum. You could get a couple of players back, but I'm probably thinking 4-3 right now.
They had 6 games, right?
Yep. Or wait, 4-3. Yeah, that doesn't make sense, does it? 4-3.
I know I'm bad at
dang
that.
It. I was off.
My calculator to check, but well, where are you going?
I've got short-term memory, but no math skills.
Yeah. So
there will be an investigation. Yeah. So maybe 3-3. Okay. So let's say So let's say maybe 3-3 or 4-2. Somewhere around there. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I picked 8 wins to start the year, so I'm just going to go with that and say they finished 4-2. But again, I have no idea from week to week who this team is. Buffalo I thought they'd blow Washington away. Now they played 2 teams. They're going to be favored to win these next 2 games. These are right there with the worst. They play 6 games, including 2 against the Jets, of teams in the bottom 10 this year. And Atlanta's in there too. So, but 2 of them are coming up now. And these are the games that can you say a team with 4-7 records should win? But they should win these games.
They should. And you know what, Hyde? What occurs to me is that if they are an 8-win team, a 9-win team, a 7-win team, when we talk about it's hard to predict what they're going to do, isn't that kind of a calling card of mediocre teams that they could win any game, they could lose any game, that's kind of the nature of who they are and how the season goes when you're in that 7, 8, 9-win range. I'm looking at that Pittsburgh game on Monday night as kind of a pivotal game as far as, what the Dolphins could do coming down the stretch, right? Because Pittsburgh is 6-5, I believe. And that's a road game. That's a Monday night game. That's a primetime game. The Dolphins under McDaniel, let me look it up. I want to say that they're 4-12 and 5-12 in primetime games under Mike McDaniel after the win in Madrid. So I'm looking at that Pittsburgh game as really a very pivotal game down the stretch here, even though they can't overlook any game, as you were saying before the show, even New Orleans. But I'm looking at Pittsburgh as kind of a pivotal game.
Yeah, these schedules really been a surprise this year. Right from the start, Indianapolis. We were talking about this before the show. Indianapolis, I thought they were on even playing ground with Indianapolis. Now Indianapolis is really good. Second game, New England. Again, I thought the Dolphins even ground. New England looks really good. Meanwhile, some of the teams you expected to be good have really fallen. Cincinnati, for instance, coming up. Um, Now they did it without Joe Burrow for a while, but Joe Flacco has been scoring points for them. They're just a bad organization.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but
What about Baltimore? Do you believe in Baltimore? Because I'm not a believer in Baltimore.
well, I'm a believer that they're better than what they play 2-6 when they played the Dolphins. They got some people back.
Mm-hmm.
Are they a contender? I thought they had the most talent of anybody last year in the AFC. So if they can get those guys back and up, but their defense their defense doesn't look like a Baltimore Ravens defense. And can Harbaugh make the change to saying we're an offensive team now, not a defensive team? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know either. And then look, when we look at the Dolphins finishing here, there's going to be so much involved here when you talk about winning road games, when you talk about beating good teams, when you talk about winning in December and January. Do you think Mike McDaniel has learned from the previous seasons how to do that? If there's some kind of a secret to it aside from good health, if you have to coach differently, if you need to run the ball more, whatever the secrets are, do you think Mike McDaniel has solved that riddle?
I don't know that there are any secrets in December other than stay healthy, and you need to have a physical game. Um, in the cold, that'd be the one, but you need that in September too. And the one thing that they haven't developed is physical line play. Now you've seen it at times, and especially the Larry Borum side of the line. They're running behind to the right side. Achan's been running to the right very well. And is that a surprise? Yeah, that's a surprise to me this year from what I expected. Um, but I don't know, Perk. Are there any great secrets to winning at the end of the year? Remember last year we went into the year and McDaniel kept saying it's not how you start, it's how you finish. How you finish. Well, they started 2-6, so it was how they started. But they've tried emphasizing it before, and to me, it's just good teams get better through the season and are starting to play their best ball as long as they can stay healthy.
I'll tell you this. I do like the way Mike McDaniel has shifted the offense the last couple of seasons for different reasons. Last year, they went to the dink and dunk offense. This year, they're running the ball more. And this year, it's Tyreek is not there. So you have to rely on a different alpha male. I understand that. But I do like the way the offense has run the last couple of years when they've made these shifts. My question to you along those lines, Hyde, do you think that Tyreek Hill kind of made Mike McDaniel think about offense differently? Did he think, I've got to get the ball to Tyreek? I've got to get the ball to Tyreek.
I hope
And
so.
that prevents the run game from developing
Yeah.
and you really kind of fleshing out that you wouldn't have gone to the Daniel Brunskill sixth offensive lineman / tight end with Tyreek out there, probably. Tyreek was good for the Dolphins. He was good for Mike McDaniel, but did he limit Mike McDaniel's thinking in any way?
I mean, the way any great player limits a thinking, yeah,
Yeah.
but you wanted to get him the ball. But he
Right.
also
Right.
opened up a lot of things. They could have run the ball a lot easier with him on the field because defenses are having to play a yard deep. They're having to worry about him going deep and Waddle going deep. So, um, but what was I going to say? That the idea that they are running the ball more is a positive. It takes the pressure off Tua. Look, Tua wasn't asked to do anything
Right.
much the last
Right.
couple games, except one thing: don't turn the ball over. And he didn't turn the ball over, and he threw some efficient passes and ran the offense. So I mentioned this, I think, the last show. Adam Gase in 2016 had to become more of a physical running game. this isn't a physical running game, but you can see the emphasis, the greater emphasis of it right now.
Yeah, and look, I love that they've taken more off of Tua's plate. And I've been saying that for a couple of years that it would be nice if Tua didn't have to win the game with his left arm. And now they finally put Tua in that situation where it's not all on Tua, that they're spreading out the kind of the weight, kind of the burden, and it's working out pretty well, I think. I'll ask you this also, Hyde, because
But let me
we're
say,
getting people asking about yep.
let me say one other thing. They haven't played a great defense down the stretch. The Ravens got people healthy, but it was still seemed like a work in progress with them. But you look at the Bills don't have a good defense. Washington has they fired they demoted their defensive coordinator, and Atlanta has, I don't know what's happened to their defense. But when will they come up against a good defense? Jets have lost players. So I don't want to go overboard. Oh, they're doing all these great things running the ball I'd like to see them come up against a physical defense, and then we'll see.
Yeah, and I would agree with that also. I just like that they're taking advantage of the games and the defenses that they should take advantage of. When we talk about kind of taking some of the burden off of Tua, people are asking who's coming back. James Daniels, the guard, he's on injured reserve. Yes, Mike McDaniel said a couple of people could come back after the bye. I am looking at James Daniels as one of those guys. Austin Jackson, the right tackle, had his 21-day practice window opened up over in Madrid. He's on the injured reserve. Once they hit the practice field, they have 21 days to play him or put him back on IR. So I would imagine Austin Jackson probably plays in the New Orleans game. James Daniels, I would imagine, would be next to have his 21-day window open. We've seen him in the locker room recently. He's walking around. He's in pretty good spirits. I don't know what that means for having a pectoral injury, but he's walking around. He's looking good. I don't think the pec is going to give you a limp, but he's walking around and looking good. The other pectoral injury that could be interesting if he returns is Darren Waller. And when we talk about lightening the load on Tua, you get Waller, Achane, and Waddle back out there for December. I think that could really, really help this team. And, in that situation, okay, 4-2 looks a little more possible. What do you think about a possible Waller return helping Tua and kind of energizing this offense? He did good things last time we saw him, right?
Yeah, when he's out there, you can see the impact he's made. He just hadn't been out there much or enough. The other interesting one is Austin Jackson. What do they do with Austin Jackson? I mean, he's been hurt so much that you almost have to weigh how much are we paying him for what we're getting out of it. And Larry Borum's been fine. I thought that's been a surprise to me this year. He not great, but serviceable. And again, they're running behind him. So all these factor into, to me, we're looking ahead. We're looking ahead, and not so much head, not meaning December, but ahead meaning March, when you have some decisions to make.
Hyde, let me bring up a couple of topics here in the chat. The Mad Greek says, somebody said undefeated without Chris Greer. Luis Felipe Benito says that, and then the Mad Greek says also without Jalen Phillips.
Yeah,
that's right. Exactly. What do you take from the surge in the post Chris Greer era and the post Jalen Phillips era? Because we see Jalen Phillips just balling for Philly, but are any of those departures significant in the Dolphins' success? Yeah, I don't think so.
No, sir. And in fact, Jalen Phillips was their best defensive lineman when he was here. He had the most pressures on the quarterback, and that's why Philadelphia wanted him, obviously. So, I hope this isn't one that comes back and bites the dog. I don't know what they should have done there. They did what they should have done because it was such a tricky situation with Phillips. Greer, he deserved to be fired for a while, but I don't think any of these has anything to do with how they played of late.
And Hyde, we will wrap it up with this. Dean Rodriguez asked, "How do you guys feel about Jonah and Grant after this week's performance?" I will go a step further, and I wrote last week about how the Dolphins were playing the youngsters, and was is the Washington? No, not Washington. Who did they just beat
Buffalo.
before Washington? Buffalo. Yes, boy, the short-term memory losing again. In the Buffalo game, 7 of the 8 2025 draftees played, everybody except Quinn Ewers. So they did pretty well out there on the field, the 7 draftees that played. And then beyond that, 15 of the 47 players who played in that game were third year and younger. And so when you talk about the Dolphins switching to winning with draftees and youth, they're actually kind of starting to put those guys on the field. Now, are they going to be good enough in 2 years to win a playoff game? I don't see that right now, but maybe with a couple of more draft classes. Somebody before in the chat said, give McDaniel 5 more draft classes. But my question is the draft and develop thing showing early signs of success? And would that be a factor if you're Steve Ross in considering whether to bring Mike McDaniel back next season?
Well, what you're seeing is steps being taken. Kenneth Grant down at the goal line made a really good stop on Sunday. Yep. And again, the right side of the line is although that's Cole Strange in it over there. So, I got to admit, I don't know. Jonah is making steps, but both of them were the first half of the year were so invisible, for lack of a better word. I mean, they really didn't do anything.
Yeah.
That steps are being made, and that's what you want to see. That's what this, the next 6 games will be about, is finding out, okay, just who do we got in some of these players, and I'm noticing Kenneth Grant more and more.
Yeah, I am too. And that's it. And look, I've also written about how the Dolphins, previously I've written about this, how the Dolphins have had good assistant coaches. And, you look around the league, and I think it was 7 defensive coordinators are former Dolphins coaches when you consider Vance Joseph and Anthony Campanelli up in Jacksonville, and Brian Flores and Lou Anarumo. They've had good assistant coaches, and so the development of Kenneth Grant, maybe Austin Clark, the defensive line coach, should get some credit there. Maybe these coaches can develop players given the chance. I'd be interested in seeing where this draft class is in a couple of years, because these guys, I love Dante Trader Jr., the safety, the rookie safety. I think Jason Marshall Jr., the rookie cornerback, has some potential. There's some guys, somebody mentioned Zeke Biggers on here, the 7th round pick at D tackle. He's played the last couple of games. So there are some guys here. I do think the assistant coaches do a good job on this staff. So, maybe that's something that also works in Mike McDaniel's favor, that, maybe Steve Ross says with maybe a different direction, these guys can develop this talent on this team. And the different direction would be, trying to win with youth as opposed to trying to win with veterans and free agents. Do you trust Mike McDaniel developing players, Hyde? Has he shown you anything?
Well, I mean, I go through the past how many years of drafts with Chris Greer, and say from the tank job, and how many special players have they drafted? Achan is special, but that's yep. They got rid of other guys, right? We alluded to this earlier. So much of the Dolphins' problem is self-scouting. Okay, and who do we want to keep? What do we want to pay them? And when do we pay them so they don't? It's like Andrew Van Ginkel, they didn't even offer a deal, and so he goes and he goes reunited with Flores. Those are the type of players who should be anchoring the defense. The Christian Wilkins, we can get into the debate, but the point, they made a decision a year before they lost him. We're not going to pay him. And same with Robert Hunt. So again, self-scouting and how we're going to use the salary cap money is a big problem here. To me, that's more than player development has been the problem of the last 5 years.
Yeah, I would agree. Before we get out of here, I want to say what's up to Nate G. I want to say what's up to Mr. Dorian Sims and Grandizer 12. Thanks to everybody for tuning in this week. Next week, wait a minute, Shake Money has something. Good to see Chris Perkins. I always do this. Quick question for you. What do you feel about if they move on from Mike McDaniel, bringing in Darren Rizzi? Boy, Shake, I don't know. What's up to Dean Rodriguez, by the way? I don't know that Riz would be ready for the job, but I would definitely interview him. He's a guy who did some good things down in New Orleans. He's doing good things in Denver right now. So if he wanted to interview, if Lou Anarumo wanted to interview, I would definitely interview both of them, both former Dolphins coaches who are having some success. Lou Anarumo coordinating that defense up in Indy. So both of them having good success. I would interview both of them. That's going to do it for this week's edition of the show. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday at noon. It'll be me and David Furones. Little Furones bonus back. He's traveling back from Madrid right now. So he better have a good Furones bonus.
He better have some good stories. He better have some good stories from Spain, right? I mean,
that's right.
Bring his A game.
It's the least he can do. Right. It's the least he can do. All right. That's Dave Hyde. I'm Chris Perkins. Thanks to everybody for watching. We will see you next week on Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk.